This video contains spoilers for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier Season 1, Episode 4, and potential spoilers for future episodes if our theories become a little too accurate. Major turning point this week, as this week's episode reveals even more information about the characters, and our villain's theory this time seems surprisingly accurate. We might be in for a win by the end of this season. Let's regroup for a little mid-season recap to see if we're on the right track this time around in another episode of As always, to start us off, Professor Carnes will recite some of his favorite quotes from the episode. So, Professor Carnes, if you would please get us started.
I've tried to boil this incredibly complicated episode down into 12 quotations. So if you haven't seen the episode, go watch it. This is your quotations only recap. Number 1, you are free. Number 2, 8 hours, White Wolf, then we come for him. The desire to become superhuman cannot be separated from supremacist ideals. How could I not include that one? You got 10 minutes, then we're doing things my way. I'm not your enemy. I agree with your fight. I just can't agree with the way you're fighting it. Carly Morgenthau, you're under arrest. Is this what I think it is? You play revolutionary on borrowed time, little girl. Of course, the Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever the Dora Milaje find themselves to be. Power just makes a person more of themselves. Number 11, my world doesn't matter to America, so why should I care about its mascot? And number 12, the last words, it wasn't me.
Wow, such a complicated episode. So I was watching it, I was like, how is Professor Carnes going to recap the quotes this time? And you managed to do it as impressively, even more so than last week. So this is amazing, Professor Carnes. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, so our biggest theory from this season that we've carried on throughout these 4 weeks now are about Zemo, Sharon, and US Agent. And I think we can definitively say that we're onto something when we're talking about Sharon and US Agent. I'd like to start with Sharon because she plays a smaller role in this episode. I feel like this episode gives us even more evidence that she's the power broker. When she calls Sam, she's being surrounded by a bunch of people from Madripoor. You know, why aren't they hunting her down? She killed a bunch of assassins and helped Sam and Bucky escape. The only explanation is that they work for her. And who is the person that the entire Madripoor works for? The power broker. And Sharon even says, hey, maybe I can get a satellite or something. Like, where did your satellite come from if you're not the most powerful person in Madripoor? Which points to Sharon being power broker. And the other one, where we talked about US Agent being the antagonist of the show and the final boss that they have to fight at the end of the season, looking more and more plausible now that I actually am convinced this is exactly what we're going to see by the end of the season. So I just wanted to hear from Professor Carnes and Olivia, what are your thoughts on the episodes and what are your thoughts on our theories so far?
Well, this episode is certainly a lot. It's a lot to deal with. I don't know. I think this might be my favorite episode so far, just because of how definitive the turn that we've taken is. I think our theory about John Walker being potentially the final boss, I'm leaning more towards that now. I would like to see a sort of all-out super soldier like brawl at the end of the series now. I feel like that's where it's heading.
And I will say 2 things. First, I think, Sharon Carter is really looking like the power broker. I mean, she's walking through Lowtown like a boss. And one thing that really struck me was she is really pressuring Sam and Bucky to find Carly. And it wasn't clear to me, like, I can't think of anything in her background or her position in life that would lead her to care all that much about Carly's whereabouts, other than the fact that, she's someone who traffics in super soldier serum. So I really am feeling very confident about the prediction that Sharon Carter, and I think, Harry, this was originally your prediction, if I remember correctly. That's looking really strong. 180, what's looking really weak? My prediction that John Walker was going to be redeemed in the end. I just, that ship has sailed. At this point, I will just formally admit I was utterly wrong about John Walker. He is, the worst of the villains in the show. And I mean, responsible for the most horrific, I think, most, shockingly violent scene in the MCU. I can't think of anything that is as, traumatic and upsetting as what we saw at the end of episode 4.
I was so accurate on the theory that he wants the super soldier serum. And I really believe by the end of the episode, he actually got the super soldier serum. I said from the beginning, John Walker's end goal is to be the actual Captain America, to be an actual superhero. That looks like exactly what he is doing. And then Sam and Bucky must stop him because he's doing more harm than good. So that, I think, is the definitive, clear one of the storylines that I think is going to go on in the next 2 episodes.
Absolutely. And I think going back to talking about Zemo, that moment where he saw the vials on the floor, I was very scared that they're going to have him like inject it into himself. And I feel like I don't feel like that's the sort of hypocrisy that Zemo needs to succumb to after like the character we've kind of seen this season. So I'm glad they didn't go that way. But I do think, as for his future story, that despite the fact that he destroyed the vials of the serum that are out there, Carly is still out there. And he seemed to show a really large interest in seeing Carly stopped. So I'm sure we'll probably see him again before the end of the show.
Can I just quickly follow up on one prediction Olivia made after episode 1 that we did see affirmed in episode 4? Olivia, you said Bucky was going to show off his knife handling skills, and we got it 3 episodes later in episode 4. Olivia was 100% right, so we can call that, totally confirmed. Olivia gets like the first win for the series, I think.
Victory.
But I think a lot of our early theories about a group that included Baron Zemo and U.S. Agent, I think those are busted. We said, Zemo and U.S. Agent and, Batroc the Leaper are all going to form a proto, Thunderbolts. And I think that's out the window. I think there's no way that, they've really clearly set up the U.S. Agent as a super soldier now. He's exactly the type of super soldier that Zemo feared would exist. And so I think, I think we're going to see, that there's going to be a final showdown. There's no way those two are going to be on the same side going forward.
I still think Zemo is really up to no good. I'm maintaining the theory that he's up to something malicious that we don't know about. Look at the way he's trying to manipulate people in this episode. I mean, he's super manipulative. And I think he will work in the background the later season, which is maybe how Batroc will come in, trying to recruit some people into the Thunderbolts. He doesn't like super soldiers, but then there's always that philosophy of using your enemy to fight your other enemy. That's exactly what he did in Civil War, using 2 superpowered individuals to fight one another. And plus, I don't think Batroc's a superpowered individual. So I think he's going to use some of them to fight U.S. Agent or maybe Sam and Bucky. So he might be a little 4th party or maybe like 3rd or 4th party that's involved trying to really fight both the heroes and the big villain.
Harry, I agree that he's playing people, and I think I wonder whether there isn't a thread where he's actually orchestrating more of what we're seeing on the screen now than people realize. So like, does he, there's a lot that's really telling about his interactions. He happens to find himself in the same place as John Walker and Carly and the protagonist, and he knows what's gonna happen. I mean, it's predictable. Walker's gonna fly off the handle and escalate the situation. And Zemo seems to be relishing all of it. I mean, in his very brief interaction with Walker, he says, "Oh, you're aggressive. I get it." I could see a version of this where Zemo's actually been pulling a lot of the strings the whole time, trying to push characters to where he wants them to be.
I think it is possible, perhaps, that Zemo is orchestrating some of the things behind the scenes. But really, the crux of my theory is that I think after Carly gets her redemption arc, that Zemo is going to kill her.
I can see that. First of all, I want to say I totally buy that Carly is going to be fully redeemed. I think they're planting the seeds. Did either of you notice at Mama Donya's funeral when Carly notices Sam sort of watching from the balcony or from the mezzanine, and she's holding a child and she takes the child and sets it down? I think that's a really subtle cue that she's a self-sacrificing person. She realizes, I might be in physical danger right now, so I'm going to get this child away from me. I think that was one of several really subtle moves where the show is trying to set up that Carly is a person with really good intentions. She's come around to Sam's way of thinking, or sort of renounce violence. And it would be really sad to see her then perish after that.
I want to provide several theories to really support Professor Carnes' theory that Zemo is behind everything, because that's kind of what I've been saying since episode 1. Then I backtracked on it. Now I'm going back to it. So remember in episode 1's different theories, I said that Zemo's endgame is to have U.S. agent conduct some sort of violent act to show the world who he truly is and to have him fall from grace. I think that's exactly, I mean, we saw this exact thing happen at the end of episode 4. The best way to kill somebody, Zemo realizes, is not to actually kill them and have him die. You know, he realizes that through the death of Iron Man. Iron Man died, but people still believed in him. To kill superheroes is to kill the very belief, very symbol of superheroes. By staining that shield with blood, U.S. agent kills what it means to be Captain America until Sam inevitably becomes the new Captain America and gets the shield back. And that's what Zemo wants. So I think there are several things that we can see in the show now looking back to see Zemo could be secretly pulling strings behind the back on everything that's going on. He's not going to work with John Walker, but you see everything he's doing to him, like provoking him, saying, oh, you know, like, it's okay. You're like, you know, like restraining me and everything like that. Seems like the way everything is going might actually be another one of Zemo's like intended way of things going, because that's exactly how his plan worked in Civil War. A bunch of things happened. People voluntarily did things. So there could be a huge reveal at the end of episode 5, like it was Agatha all along in WandaVision. That like it would literally be such a cool scene if we see like flashbacks of scenes like how Zemo pulls the strings, like kind of like how Mysterio scene from Far From Home. And we see that how Zemo plans everything out from beginning to end, making it the most mind-blowing plot twist and like cliffhanger in the entire MCU, and making us be like, where is episode 6 right now? Like, talk about a way to lead into a finale of a season.
So it was Zemo all along.
It was Zemo all along.
I think the only way the it was Zemo all along theory works is if he was aware of the Flag Smasher and the super soldier situation before Bucky came and visited him in prison. Because I feel like if he just sort of became aware of that then, I don't know if there's enough evidence that he necessarily orchestrated things all along, more so that he saw where things were going and didn't feel a need to particularly stop them.
But what stops him from knowing about world news when he's in the prison?
Flag Smash, okay, well, the Flag Smashers are world news, but the fact that they're super soldiers was not. Sam only found that out because of Torres.
They might be active before the show started, because I feel like episode 1 is not the first instance where this group was active. So I think it might be other instances where other people got information that they're super soldiers, and Zemo may have gotten it. I mean, considering his status as a Baron and his connections with the underworld, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets firsthand information on some things, especially when it relates to super soldier serum, because remember, he is an expert on Hydra and their super soldiers. That is why Sam and Bucky went to him in the first place, because he's the person that they need to rely on to find Carly. So what is stopping Zemo from studying Carly in his prison, just like he studied Captain America and Iron Man before Civil War?
You know, I like that your respective theories actually line up pretty neatly. So Olivia, Carly is redeemed, but then perishes. Harry, you know, that then frees up the rest of the surviving Flag Smashers for Zemo to recruit them. So without Carly as a leader, who's going to step in?
I don't know if I would prefer that it was Zemo all along theory though. I feel like it works. It feels like a very comic book thing to do, and that's an odd thing to say when we're talking about a comic book show. But I think I like the idea of Zemo simply working as an independent agent outside of like behind the scenes, but not necessarily doing what we saw him do in Civil War, which is just being the one who knows everything at all times.
Olivia, to your theory that we're gonna see Carly die at the end, how many Flag Smashers were super soldiers initially? So there were was it 13?
20 vials of the super soldier serum got away, right?
And were there 7 vials at the start of episode 4?
Yes.
Somebody did a count of the super soldier serum. I couldn't remember the exact numbers, but somebody was like keeping track of all the serums that appear in the episode. And even when US Agent, because Zemo destroyed all of them except one, and somebody counted all of that in, and supposedly there's still supposed to be a few vials left.
So okay, so we think there are other vials elsewhere. I asked because, you know, if it's 20 vials, 7 go unused initially, that would mean 13 Flag Smasher super soldiers. And they've lost 2 by my count. 1 delaying the Power Brokers agents and 1 killed by US Agent. So that would leave 11 remaining Flag Smasher super soldiers, I believe, which is still a pretty big group. It also, I mean, to the extent we think they might be drawing on, say, narratives from the Bible, you would actually have, you know, 1 leader and 12 disciples, and so that might fit, you know, this idea that that Carly is going to sacrifice herself in the end.
And I can't help but think about something. I know it's from a long, long time ago, and sometimes people forget about teaser trailers and the very first footage that's released for a show. But in 2020 in Super Bowl, they released the very first footage of Disney Plus shows. And in that, there's one footage where Bucky stands before Zemo in like this Sokovia memorial, and he's like having empty bullet shells and dropping them to the floor as Zemo watches in absolute terror. I don't think that's a fake shot. I think that's going to happen because we saw in another trailer that Zemo's actually standing in front of the memorial. He even alluded to it several times. Like, you know, like, have you ever visited Sokovia? You know, like, what happened to Sokovia? So I think there's going to be confrontation between Bucky and Zemo. But so far, we haven't seen any like signs of actual confrontation like that. I mean, there's confrontation between Bucky and Zemo because Bucky distrusts Zemo. And I think that's going to explode when he realizes that Zemo is up to no good. And we are going to see a confrontation between him and Zemo in the finale. So I actually think we're shaping up to a really, really, really exciting finale. I mean, you got Bucky and Sam and hopefully Carly fighting US Agent, good Cap versus evil Cap. And remember, all 4 of them are candidates for Captain America. Bucky wants to take the shield. Sam was given the shield. John Walker's the current Captain America. And Carly even was alluded to as a Captain America character. And you add Isaiah into the equation, and you have 4 good Captain Americas versus 1 evil Captain America. And I would love to see that, just having them like pass the shield with each other, doing like more of that shield combo against US Agent. You have this whole plot with Zemo, what he's up to, and how Bucky and Sam are going to outsmart him. And then you have the Power Broker, who is going to have the entire Madripoor declare war on superheroes. I mean, if we are actually right, we could be in for a really, really mind-blowing finale.
I would love to see Carly become Cap or to remain affiliated with the kind of Captain America group. One thing I wanted to raise, and I don't mean to change the subject, but I think Carly is a singular sort of antagonist in the MCU. And I just want to flag that we talked last time about how Carly articulates the big critique of the entire superhero genre. She says, you know, the problem with superheroes are, you know, she embodies the critique of the superhero genre. The problem is they're trying to put the world back the way it was, but often the way it was really broken. Superheroes just defend the status quo, and so they don't leave a lot of room for fundamental social change or for making the world truly better. And Carly, that's exactly her position. And we haven't talked about the GRC, and the show's been really subtle in its depictions of the GRC, but it's immensely insidious. Like, the GRC is displacing people who immigrated after the blip, so basically forcibly repatriating people who immigrated in the 5 years between the blips. It's setting up refugee camps, and, you know, it's apparently just sitting on resources and making people, I mean, it's an immensely malevolent organization, and the show never smacks us on the head with that. Like, but all the signs are there that the GRC is really, you know, up to no good. Here comes Carly, who says, okay, This is, the way things were before wasn't good. We actually have a chance to make the world a better place. And what makes her really like singular as antagonist is she's the only MCU sort of villain or antagonist who is fighting on behalf of like the globally displaced and marginalized. And I think you could say sort of the same thing about like Killmonger potentially. But I mean, Carly is really clearly aligned. She is just a freedom fighter. She's just a revolutionary. And until she kills, her hands are actually pretty clean. She's and so I think she's a really, really unusual MCU villain. And I think it was actually groundbreaking when Sam agreed with her. Like, we've never had a Marvel hero say, yeah, actually heroes shouldn't be preserving the way the world was. They should be making the world better than it is. That was a first for the MCU as far as I know. So I just think it's a really big deal that Falcon and the Winter Soldier is walking right up to this big critique of superheroes and having, the title character say, you know what, I agree, that is wrong with superheroes. We should do better. So I was really excited to see that critique surface, see the way Sam interacted with it. I really hope we, get a fully redeemed Carly and we see her going forward in the MCU. That could be a game changer. It could be superheroes who don't just put things back the way they were.
I really, really like that Marvel brought in GRC and US Agent as a critique on the US and US government and a lot of the problems that we've been talking about. I think this show really shows it. And that's why I think that ending shot of John Walker with the bloody shield is so powerful, because in some ways, Steve Rogers represents maybe the America that never existed that we've always dreamed about. Like when we talk to people about the USA, Steve is the kind of image that comes into our mind. But in reality, John Walker is the real America that we live in every single day. And I think that's a really subtle yet powerful message that they're sending out there. So Professor Carnes, I really, really wish that we could add on to a bit of the research, because the Falcon Winter Soldier, I think, adds so much more rich context to how the US government is portrayed in the MCU.
Absolutely. I was listening to a podcast today, and they described Captain America as not really representing any aspect of America as it is or was, but representing like our goals for America, our goals for democracy. Like he's the ambition, he's the sort of hope of democracy. And then you see, sort of this like the really dark, really twisted, the worst of America in John Walker, in US Agent. And I love that I agree with you here. I think it's really important that they did that they have the anti-cap, that they have, I was thinking when I watched this episode about how the Punisher, the Punisher skull has been appropriated in a lot of contexts and used as like a symbol of, I would say, something like violent masculinity or something like that, to the horror of the actual creators of the Punisher. And I sort of see this as, just as the creators of the Punisher have tried to rebrand the Punisher skull and like take it back and make it a symbol of something less malicious, I kind of see that, MCU is sort of entering the fray here, and it's saying, here's Captain America, but let's remember that you can take these same symbols and really twist them and really distort them and really make them something quite vile, something evil. And so I think that's a really, to your point, Harry, gosh, it would be nice if we could go back and write a paper for the volume about Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
I think it's a brilliantly written plot that they've done with the Falcon and Winter Soldier. And I applaud like everyone involved in the show to really explore these topics. Kudos to Wyatt Russell, who like plays John Walker brilliantly. I know he's receiving death threats on the internet, and that's ridiculous. And I just wanted to spend this time to really just say that he did an amazing job as this character. Attack the character, not the actor, people.
The fact that people hate him so much means he did a great job as an actor. Like he is utterly believable as this character. Olivia, you like picked up on it just from, I think it was you who like just that wink, you were like, I know he's going to be bad just based on his like body language and 8 seconds of footage. But I actually think that says he's a really skillful actor who can, just instantly remind us of people and experiences.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree. And I think it's really awesome that like we're seeing this narrative continue under the lens of Captain America. Because if you look at the Captain America, the arc of movies as a whole, and this as a follow-up to it, you have the first Captain America movie, which is naturally, I mean, it's based in World War II. So you have your natural black and white, I mean, they're Nazis, so no one's going, that's obviously something that is meant to be fought against. And then you have the second movie, which is kind of a critique of government, but it's still coming from a place of Hydra has infiltrated the government. So it's still, the core of it is really that Nazis have infiltrated what was meant to be good. But then you have the third movie, and the ideological problem shifts into something that's not created from outside the US, but is rather the Accords are a product of the US government's relationship with superheroes. So I feel like from Civil War on, that is where the morality sort of starts to definitively shift. And now we have this show where we have Sam openly admitting that he agrees with Carly. And I think that arc is just amazing to look back at. And it's wonderful that they planned it that way.
Mm. And so true to the character, so true to the comics. I mean, Cap is never just an empty symbol of like rah patriotism. He's about our ideals, and sometimes we say like protest is patriotic. Like I think Captain America would agree. He would say, yeah, should we all make predictions about who will get the shield? So Harry, you've sort of locked in Sam at this point. Olivia, do you have a prediction?
It's Sam.
So I have a crazy prediction, but I'll lock it in because we need crazy predictions. I think no one's gonna get the shield. I actually think Sam had the right idea, putting it in a museum, letting it stand for America's ideals. And Zemo said it, like there's never been another Steve Rogers. And so my prediction is Sam will inherit the mantle of Captain America. Sam will be the new Captain America, but like he doesn't fight with a shield. He's not a super soldier, and he fights really well with. His shield is, of course, the wing shield. And I don't want us to lose sight of that. We need more wing shield. So my prediction is Sam's going to get the mantle of Cap. He will be the new Captain America. But I think there'll be a dramatic scene where like he gives the shield to Isaiah Bradley, or he, puts the shield in, a museum alongside of an Isaiah Bradley exhibit or something. I think he's going to retire the shield.
Ooh.
So that's I'm going to lock in Nick's crazy prediction, which is, Sam can be Cap, but the shield will be retired. The shield will always be a symbol of what's best, and it won't be tainted by the person holding it.
Let's lock in our theories for this week. First, I'm still convinced that Sam is Captain America, but even if he isn't, I think Marvel's going to give us an extremely satisfying and emotional ending to the series that I think will make us all cry. Second, I think Zemo is still pulling the string in the back. I think something's going to be revealed that he's kind of pulling the strings. Third theory, locked in, U.S. agent, still the final boss that I have to physically fight. We're going to see Sam, Bucky, Carly, and Isaiah fighting U.S. agent together in an epic showdown between good versus evil Cap. And finally, still committed, Sharon Carter's power broker and cause trouble for our heroes in an explosive showdown in episode 6.
Okay, I will definitely lock in that we're going to have a huge sort of super social type, like mega bowl where everyone teams up together to fight John Walker. I will also lock in that Sam is the one getting the shield at the end of the show. And lastly, I will lock in my theory about Zemo killing Carly after her redemption arc.
I'm typing because I'm taking notes on all this, and I'll do a final scorecard after episode 6 so that we can really see who did the best. I'm sure it won't be me. My theories are usually the craziest. So I'll commit to, I'm going to lock in that Sam is going to give away the shield, that there's not going to be a Captain America after this. And I think we will learn his motivation for giving it to the Smithsonian initially. I think we're going to see a flashback, or he's going to explain, I gave this away because it's bigger than all of us. So I'm going to say no Captain America. And Sam gives the shield to Isaiah Bradley, or puts it in a museum alongside Isaiah Bradley exhibit. So no Captain America. I'm actually going to predict that Sharon Carter will be revealed as the power broker, but it will be a stinger, or it will be, at the very end of the last episode. But there won't actually be a showdown with her. I think they're really, they're going to plant her as the power broker for future films, but I don't see an obvious reason why she needs to have a physical confrontation. So I agree with the, idea that it's going to be a super soldier mega bowl, as Olivia described it. But I think Sharon Carter will remain in the background. The power broker is watching, but I think that's all the power broker is going to be doing in this series. I think they're going to save Sharon for a future one. So no final battle with Sharon.
I think either the director or the writer teased that we're going to see a surprise character in episode 5. Hopefully it's not another Paul Bettany playing himself situation from WandaVision. I think we're on to something for this series. I think we'll walk out of this prediction series emerging victorious rather than WandaVision, where we failed miserably. All will be revealed within the next 2 weeks. And please tune into another episode of our final predictions right before episode 6 next week at the same time. So thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Different Theories. And please support our channel by subscribing. It will really, really help us. We really appreciate it. Again, we have a very, very, very special and top secret series coming out this summer. So be very excited about that. And that's all for today. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next week.